Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back. Today's story is called Hello Flesh, and it was written by Urban Playground 1. And with that, let's sit back, grip our seats, and enjoy the show. Nothing like a half-knot arm wrapped in foil to make someone hunger for normality. It suffocates like heavy blankets. You go through it wanting more. When it's gone, you want it back, real bad, like a drowning man craves air. What am I going to do with this arm in my freezer? Well, it wasn't like my wife worked hard to hide it. Betty is a nice woman, but dealing with anything that has to do with packing items, she just, doesn't have the skills. You don't want to know how she packs her suitcases when we travel. Let's just say I can fit more items in her suitcase. At least 100 more. Well, not really 100, but a lot. I know. You want to know how I knew it was an arm. Well, it had fingers. Not 5. 2 were missing. The only clues I had to what happened to them was the deep bite marks in the arm. No, I didn't take the foil off. The arm was expertly wrapped, so there was no waste. It covered the arm and sunk into the bite marks. I'm no dentist, but they seemed to be about the size of Betty's mouth. Okay, not good. The things you learn about someone after 2 years of marriage, or what you don't learn. Had she been eating folks all this time? Or was this a new exploration in cannibal cuisine? If she said, "You look so tasty, I just want to gobble you up," should I make sure a weapon is ready to be grabbed nearby? Or should I have kept my running shoes on? Is this something that should be handled in couples therapy? Doc, my wife likes to eat random body parts from strangers, raw. Okay, maybe not. I wonder if I should call the police or FBI. Oh yeah, that will be a fun discussion. Hun, I found a chewed up human arm in the freezer. Do you have something to tell me? More sugar. Sorry about that. I'm no lawyer, but I can guess finding body parts in one's freezer probably means that I need to find out what's going on, or I'll be part of the problem. Another thought hit me. What if she cuts off pieces and cooks them? Woo, that scenario won't work. Betty's idea of cooking is to grab a menu and start calling restaurants. I do the cooking around here. Real hot meals. Oh, and no human flesh. I'm going to have to deal with the carnivorous elephant in the room. My wife has killed or grabbed a body part from someone and brought it home. Yeah, it's family discussion time. Luckily, it's just me and her. Then again, I worried about her reaction. Yeah, good times. Not. I sighed and closed the freezer door, then turned and bumped into my cannibal wife. Think I might have squeaked. No, not like a tiny whiny mouse, more like a manly squeak. We need to talk, but first I need your help, Betty said, as the light from the fluorescent lights danced on her bloody, coppery red hair. How do cannibals have sex like gnaw one's business? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Kinda. Let me guess. You want that arm in the freezer? I asked. Then I cursed myself for not checking out her hands before asking. Too late now. Betty looked away, her brown eyes glancing at something in the kitchen, then back at me. Yeah. Something strange happened at Hopewell. Hopewell Bioresearch, the megacore that crouched several miles out of town. All I knew was that it did research on food and animals. Let me guess. That arm was grown in a lab? Please let it be so. Betty sighed. Not a good sign. When she sighed before telling me something, it was going to suck. I had a feeling it was black hole levels. Not even light or my hope would survive. She looked away from me again. Yeah, something happened at Hopewell. I waved my hands. Betty liked to spin a good yarn. I just wanted the facts. People eating madame. Just get to the point. After saying that, I realized, well, maybe I shouldn't be so abrupt to someone who has eaten human flesh. I tried to look at her mouth to see if her teeth were pointy, but she kept her mouth shut for now. Betty nodded. Yeah, basically, I found a group of people around a body lying on the floor. Someone gave me an arm. They said, try it. You won't believe the taste. Well, I didn't. You should have been there. That arm smelled so good. I just had to take a bite or more, she said, then looked at the floor. I'm surprised that no one in human resources or HR was there. I think eating coworkers creates a hostile environment. Did you guys get bored of cake and/or pizza? Betty's eyes narrowed, then she glanced at me, then back at the floor. Actually, there were two people from HR. One was lapping up the blood from the floor, while the other one was chewing on a leg. Oh yeah, I think I know where I don't want to work. Does this happen often or just today? What's going on? Betty looked at me again. The person that was being eaten came out of the black sector. That's the super secret research area. I had heard rumors of a Project Circe, but nothing definite. I don't know what it's about. Circe, what kind of name is that? For a moment, I thought about that movie in which some guy sails around and runs into all sorts of weird stuff. Wasn't there an island where some woman turned men into pigs? Not sure. Have to focus on the bigger fish, arm to fry. Again, Betty looked at me. I was thinking, since you know how to cook, you could fix that arm like you do ribs? Please? Her eyes widened and she grinned, pearly whites shining in the light from the lights above us. It seemed sexy, but then I remembered whose bite marks were on the arm. Wait, she wants me to cook that arm up? What about police? I'm quite sure it's evidence. Then again, if my wife has eaten someone, she might not stop there. Okay, I'll cook it like a pork loin. She smiled and hugged me. Afterwards, I made a note to defrost some non-human meat for myself. Maybe I should call the cops. Then again, I know what happens to snitches. And once I knew what was going on and didn't report it, I was part of the situation. Wait, maybe I can save a piece of meat and the bones to send to the cops. Ugh, I'm going to have to turn my wife in. I know. The marriage vows say for better or worse, but what about if your spouse eats someone? Is there a disclaimer or escape clause? Or even a sanity clause? After a moment, I sighed. No escape clause. I'm going to have to do the deed and get the cops here. I'll do it in the morning. Honey, it's on the news, Betty yelled. I rushed into the living room and glanced at the TV. Even though the place was painted white and was called Hopewell, it reminded me of some sort of evil lab. Other than the visitors' plaza, there were no windows. I saw flames spewing out of the doors and roofs. Cops and firemen tried to do their jobs when several people ran out of the building. One poor guy or gal was on fire and stumbling around. A fireman managed to use a fire extinguisher on the poor person. Well, I think that Betty should spruce up her resume. She has some vacation time coming. Just when I thought that things were somewhat calming down, I saw the fireman lean down and take a bite out of the still moaning person that had been on fire. What the hell? Several cops and firemen started to chew into some of the escaping people. Even the cameraman was acting strange. He kept asking if people were smelling barbecue. Then the screen went back to the TV station. The news guy's eyes were wide, like he had never seen anything like that. Then the show went to a commercial for Spam. Well, at least it wasn't for pork, the other white meat. Betty looked at me with wide eyes, too. What's going on? Dread filled me like a too heavy dinner. I've seen more than my share of zombie movies, but the idea that they were now real, well, that was something I didn't want to deal with. Maybe we should just leave town. Betty shook her head. No, not until I make some calls and find out what's going on. Some other nasty ideas crawled into my mind. Yo, Bets, if Hopewell has been doing some research for the CIA or some other government org, they wouldn't hesitate to clean up their mess. Goodbye, Hopewell campus. Goodbye, any employees, even if they didn't have anything to do with any black box project. Come on, you've seen the shows. Crap. I sounded like those weirdos who talk about chemtrails. Again, Betty shook her head. Let me make some calls. You make some food for us and pack. We'll leave once I have some idea of what's going on. Really? Really? Visions of jets flying over and carpet bombing the town filled my mind. Some officious bastard saying that there was a chemical explosion at the labs. No, gotta focus. Have to make some stuff to carry with us and pack. I'm going to leave armless for sure. Honey, can you nuke the arm in the microwave so it's nice and warm? Would you like some grape poupon with that too? I think we should leave that alone and get ready to bail. I don't want to be on the lam with a hungry stomach. Famous last words. Please promise me you won't get into the car with that arm. No reply. I guess I better do what she says. Maybe driving around with a hungry cannibal is a bad idea. With a sigh, I got the arm out and unwrapped it. I briefly wondered which wine goes best with human flesh. Not an issue. Betty drinks beer. Had to cut the arm in half so it would fit in the microwave. Take that, Iron Chef. While the arm was being nuked, I rounded up some supplies for our trip. Gonna need water and some granola bars. Had doubts that Betty would bother with them. Hopefully in a few weeks things would settle down. Then I heard Betty on the phone. Hey Kathy, how's it going? Not so good? Someone ate one of your coworkers? Yeah, that bites. Oh, sorry. Do you know what happened at Hopewell? One of the black section projects got out? Do you know which one? Something to do with making food more appetizing and DNA splicing and viral transcription? What's that about a nice smelling cop? That's TMI. I'll let you go. Call me. Hello? Hello? Betty hung up and walked into the kitchen. I talked to Kathy. She said something weird about a good-smelling cop, Betty said while her eyes locked on the arm in the microwave. I could almost hear the spit forming in her mouth. You know Kathy has issues. Did she tell you anything else? Moments later, I moved away from the microwave, knowing better than to get between a woman and her meal. Betty grabbed a plate from a cabinet and a fork and knife from a drawer. I wondered if she was going for mustard or ketchup. Well? She opened the microwave and put the pieces of arm on her plate. Steam rose from it. Yeah, it's tied to a black section project. After I eat, we should leave. Wow, that arm smelled pretty good. Kinda like a well-done barbecue. No way that's from someone. Not going to get all drooly over that. Sirens wailed from down the block and moved closer. For a quick second, I wanted to say, "They're coming to get you, Betty. Here comes one of them now." No, I didn't, as the red lights shone through the window. I heard people screaming. Do I want to see what's going on? No, but I have to know. I pointed at Betty. Finish that. When I come back, we get out of here. Then I went toward the window and the lights. What I heard outside made me wish I was dreaming. Or at least in bed with the covers over my head like a child. People were screaming. Somebodies were banging on something, and mixed in with that was a bunch of slobbering and chewing. I locked down the block at first. A fire truck was sitting in the middle of the street while my neighbors were banging on the doors to get in. How did they stop the truck? Oh yeah, a car was in front at the stoplight. There was another fire truck. It was one that had the ladder. Unfortunately, the fire people inside had been dragged out and were lying on the sidewalk and in the street. They screamed and tried to push away my hungry neighbors. What was going on? Are my neighbors zombies? Early morning conversations are going to be so boring. How's it going, Phil? Brains. Got back to reality. Wished for a moment. I didn't have to. What's going on? What the hell? I knew most of these people. Waved at them when I passed by. Heck, I've gone to their backyard barbecues, and they had come to mine. It would have been better if I had seen zombies instead. At least I can understand them. And yeah, they were not zombies. Nancy Boylan from across the street didn't have rotten flesh. I watched as she tore a strip of skin from a shrieking fireman. She looked normal, or as normal someone would look with a piece of skin in their bloody hands. She looked at me. Hey Mike, what's up? I almost wanted to reply, my lunch, but I kept it down and quiet. Nancy, what are you doing? She turned her blue eyes to the bloody strip in her hand, then at the flailing fireman. He smells so good. You want some? Then she shoved the meat at me. After I saw her blood-smeared face, I put up my arms in protest. Nah, I'm good. Ate a mailman earlier today. Her eyes narrowed. What? She's tearing someone to bits and now is angry at me? Then again, being a wise ass does have its downsides. Then her eyes whitened. She shook her head. Funny. Do you want me to save you some? Maybe you could do one of your tasty marinades. Some guy who had been tearing at the still screaming fireman's neck whooped. Marinade? Heck yeah. Some lime juice and herbs would be great. Got some apple wood in my garage. A barbecue would be awesome. Then the rest of my people-eating neighbors stopped to whisper, barbecue, like some sort of hopeful chant. Then they went back to their own business. Roger, you have no manners, said Nancy, before she shoved the strip of flesh in her mouth. She chewed quietly, which was a relief. The guy who mentioned Applewood stood up. Oh, hell no. I am not shaking someone's bloody hands. Roger looked at his hands and stopped to lick them. Good effort, guy, but I'm still not touching you. He paused in his licking. Sorry, man. I'll shake your hands later when I'm cleaned up. I'm Nancy's new boyfriend, Roger Wanamaker. Then he instinctively stuck out one blood and spit-covered hand. I stepped back. "Oh, sorry," Roger said. The fireman groaned. "Kill me." I looked at him. Wait. He seemed familiar. Then I got it. He was one of the folks that started chewing on the... That thought was interrupted when I heard the squeal of tortured metal and gunshots. I looked at the front of the fire truck. Someone had pried the door open with a crowbar and got shot. The poor cannibal lay on the ground, dead. Several of my neighbors pulled the firewoman out while she screamed and kicked at them. Time to go inside. I raced back into my house and locked the door. "Bets, check the back door. I don't want what's outside coming in." "Okay." I crouched down while my heart hammered in my chest. Who knows what will happen when folks have guns? Had to pull down the shades so I wouldn't be a target. None of this "shoot 'em in the head, there's another one for the fire" nonsense. Think it's time to call 911. Wished I could have helped that firewoman, but I was too scared. Of course, my cell phone was upstairs. I better get to it. A bullet tore through the top of my window. I forced myself to lay flat on the carpet. Ugh, it needs a cleaning. Glad we didn't have a dog or a cat. It would have been dead in seconds. After a few too long moments, I reached the stairs. No bullets smashed through the glass to get me. The trip to my bedroom was a cinch. What was going to be harder was coming up with something that would get more paramedics. Sorry. Another line from a zombie movie. After this, I probably will switch to watching family dramas. There were a few more screams. No, I'm not going to see what happened. Gotta get help. I stared at my phone. What am I going to say to the 911 dispatcher? Do I really need them? Yeah. Some firemen, fire personnel, got eaten by my neighbors. Maybe I should just get out of here. Gotta think about this. Somebody screwed up at Hopewell Bioresearch, and the cops and fire people were called. It didn't help that they started chewing on the employees. Then the first responders showed up here and became snacks for my neighbors. Is the pattern going to repeat with the cops I call in, feasting on my neighbors? Maybe I didn't know all of them that well, but I'm not sure I want to be responsible for their deaths. Maybe I should take the coward's way out and just get out before things get worse. Someone hooked up a sound system outside, and Michael Bolton was singing. That's what love is all about. Oh yeah, things have gotten worse. A cannibal block party. The property values are so going to tank here. Betty ran into the bedroom. Oh my God, Michael Bolton. Maybe they'll play Britney Spears, Baby Eat Me One More Time. I just shot her some stink eye. She just shrugged. I tried to contact Kathy. All I got is her voicemail. I hope she's okay. Maybe we should leave real soon. I nodded. I'll pack. You check on the car and the friendly neighborhood people eaters. Betty nodded and went downstairs. I got the suitcases and started packing. For a quick second, I thought about asking Betty if she finished her arm. Nah, I'll do that later. By the time I finished up, some non-cannibal songs were playing. I lugged the suitcases downstairs to the garage. Betty showed up a few moments later. My stomach growled. Damn, she smelled good, or it was whatever she ate. No, I don't want to think about it now. Betty frowned. Maybe you should eat something before we leave. I shook my head. I'll get something when we get out of here. This isn't ending well. Betty nodded and waited outside the car. I opened the trunk and put the suitcases in and headed for the driver's side. Hopefully, we can get out of here before things really go south. There was no doubt in my mind something awful was going to happen. Finally, I was in the car next to Betty. My stomach growled again. Damn, something smells really good in this car. It certainly wasn't the granola bars. Only ate those when jogging. Almost anything else would be better. Gotta stop thinking about food. I opened the garage door with the remote, drove out and closed the garage door. Some relief filled my body. If we can get out of here and not run into any trouble, maybe today could end well. Outside, it was like some sort of block party. Some of my neighbors had their grills going, while others either sat and chatted or brought other food from their homes. Really? For a moment, I wished I could join the fun, but I knew what the grilled meat was. The bodies of the fire personnel were probably discreetly hidden somewhere, or whatever was left of them. I sighed and drove down the block. A few folks waved. No one bothered to stop us. We drove away. The next hour or so was torture. It was like having takeout in my car, and the aroma was making me drool. I definitely needed to buy some snacks to take the edge off. Maybe some chips. No, that's not what I really want. I can't have what I really want. Well, not now. My stomach growled again. Damn, honey, you need something to eat. Here, have this. Betty offered a granola bar. Maybe I should have taken it. But all I could think of was just dust and ashes. Ugh, no. Betty must have gotten the memo because she looked at me and put the bar away. Are you okay? I'll feel better when we get to a hotel. Think I need a nap, I said. No, I wanted a piece. Maybe just a finger. Nah, they are like those chips. Can't eat just one. Whoa, that's my wife. I pushed those thoughts back. They came back like hungry dogs. No, more like starving dogs. All shiny fangs and spewing drool. Finally, we reached a motel. Dingy but not too shabby. A few cars were parked in the lot. Yeah, this would have to do. Needed time to push back these urges. Inside, there was a bored guy sitting at a desk. He put his magazine down and looked at us. One room for a night. I might stay longer, I said. Maybe I can get room service. For a moment, things seemed normal. Then the guy started sniffing. What the hell? Then he started looking at my wife like she was his favorite food. She's mine. Get your meal elsewhere. A strange thought entered my mind. Maybe there was enough to share. Maybe he could help me subdue her. No way. No stranger was going to chew on my wife. I'm not going to help him. Betty noticed his gaze and shot him some stink eye. I was surprised when he flinched. The guy gave me the key. Room 201. It's upstairs. He licked his lips as we left. I nodded and got the key. Was still freaking hungry. We left the office. You know, I like the male gaze like any other red-blooded woman, but that was just so creepy. I thought the bad old wolf was looking at me and licking its chops, Betty said, while disgust crossed her face. Chops, no. Betty back ribs, heck yeah. What? I'm so hungry. Why? I didn't eat the arm. Well, I haven't had anything since lunch. But I've waited longer between meals, and never was this hungry. What's going on? Have to get to the bathroom and lock myself in. We reached the small, dingy room. Betty frowned. Well, at least there's a TV. I nodded and rushed to the bathroom. Gotta stay away from her until I stop these urges. You okay in there? Betty asked. Yeah, I think I'll wash up a bit, then take a nap. Do you want room service if they have it? Nah, the food's here. All I have to do is eat. No, I'm not eating my wife. There are laws against that in most states. Definitely grounds for divorce. My stomach growled again. It sounded like a police dog. How was I going to do this? Betty would not go gently into that good night, or my stomach. Howling at her to get in my belly might make her laugh. No, fear would cross her face, and she would fight. Wait, why am I considering this? How did I get this way? Hungry. How was I going to feed? Maybe I could say I'll just give her a hug, and then chew her throat out. No! Betty has been my wife and friend for years. Can't do that. Hungry. 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 Spit leaked from my lips and dripped into the sink. It even washed off some of the grime. Nothing like quality accommodations. Yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'll give her a good hug before she goes. A woman and friend of good taste deserves that much. My stomach growled as I managed to swallow more spit. I smiled as I left the bathroom.